Flickin' Off, baby. Episode 6. Episode 6. I'm Mark. That's my cousin Jacob. We're coming to you week to week. We're going to break down these films week in, week out. Before we start the show today, we have a bit of a memoriam piece we wanted to do here in the beginning of the show. I'll let Jacob take it away.
Yeah, I found out recently that Graham Greene passed away. He was the great indigenous First Nations actor who was born in June 22nd, 1952, and he just died September 1st of 2025. He's got 245 credits on IMDb. So, he did a lot of work. Some of his famous ones are Green Mile, Lonesome Dove, Thunderheart, just to name a few. He was born on the Six Nations Reserve in Ontario, and he worked in the steel industry as a draftsman, a carpenter, did a lot of different jobs, a welder. Then he opened a music recording studio and also went on the road with some rock bands doing audio technical work. And then he gave that up as his theater career took off in the 70s and 80s, in Ontario, in Toronto and London. And really all that work just culminated in his Oscar-nominated portrayal of Kicking Bird in Kevin Costner's epic Western Dances with Wolves. So just wanted to say you will be missed.
Yeah, you will be missed, Graham Greene. You may not have had like huge prominent lead roles, but you certainly had roles that touched a lot of people, a lot of audience members. And I'm certainly going to remember you to my last dying day, especially watching something as iconic as Dances with Wolves. I think that gets into your diet at least once or twice a year as a human being, if you are a big Kevin Costner fan. But yeah, R.I.P. Graham Greene. We are going to jump right into the next right here.
We'll jump right into the movie. We last week, we covered the Great Best in Show, and I decided to link it up with one of the actors that wasn't really featured hugely in Best in Show, but he does wonderful, Bob Balaban, and he's been in a ton of stuff. And he was in 2006's Lady in the Water, the M. Night Shyamalan. So why don't you give us a little breakdown of what the plot is, brother?
2006, Lady in the Water. I'd never seen it. This was a film M. Night Shyamalan made right after The Village. And The Village was one of those films that I think kind of had everyone step back from M. Night Shyamalan after that one. Success, and then Village. And I think people were taken aback by it. I have to give it a rewatch, but, Lady in the Water, Shyamalan had mentioned this to Warner Brothers early on while he was, being as successful as he still is. And, they said no. This was a story that they just didn't understand. They didn't really, I don't know whether it was because M. Night Shyamalan wanted to do it, but when he presented the script to Warner Brothers, they turned it down. So he takes it to Disney. He shows it to Disney. Disney turns it down as well. And somehow he repitched it to Warner Brothers. They ended up picking it up. I'm glad they did. And this turned into, I want to say I compare this movie to myself in some way. I mean, you either love me or you hate me. There is no in between with me as a person. Just like I think you either love this film or you hate it. There really is no in between with it. You either see it, accept it for what it is and love it, or, you go in there expecting something totally different and you don't get that and you call it a folly, which I saw major critics call this movie a folly. A bunch, fancy word for a flop. But
so for the audience that doesn't know, what's the basic gist of the movie?
The basic gist of this movie is it's a bedtime story come to life in an apartment complex building with a pool. That's pretty much it. It blurs the line between reality and myth. And I think it was done really great. They got a lot of CGI in this movie that kind of is surprising for back in that time period for what kind of movies this guy was making. I think, he used CGI in Signs a little bit, but not a lot, right? I mean, I think even the hand was an actual hand that they had made. And I think the alien stepping out in Mexico was the one CGI thing. But I think M. Night Shyamalan saw what he could do with that. And you were talking about the bedtime story that he would tell his kids. That's where this came from.
Yeah. He wrote this as a bedtime story for his kids. I don't even know if he wrote it down or at first or just had it in his head, but he spoke in some of the special features about how this just became like a magnum opus in his house. Like he would tell the story over days and days, over several nights, and his kids would be like, "Tell us more of Lady in the Water." And like they kept wanting to hear it and kept wanting to hear it. And then as he got successful, they were like, "Dad, you should make this into a movie," you know? And finally he was like, "All right." So he sat down and actually wrote it as a script, you know,
How
and
long before the movie did he write this film? Because when you told me that, that kind of blew my mind.
I think it was he said 18 months. And what he
That's
did was him and
crazy.
the producer who have collaborated before sent it out to close friends that they trust and said, like, "What do you think of this?" And they all would send back like, "Well, I like this, but I don't like this." He ended up rewriting it 13 times to get to the version that we see now. One of those friends was actually our link, Bob Balaban, who, when he read it, was like, "I have to be in this. Like, I
Yeah,
want to be in this. This is awesome." Like,
and he
and
played a cool role. He had a very interesting role.
the
Um,
film critic,
yeah, yeah,
which
and,
it's fun
that's a
because a lot
bold
of
move.
yeah, and a lot of directors like don't like film critics, right? So it was interesting to have this character of the sort of somewhat abrasive film critic in the movie, you know, who's arrogant about how he feels about films and what he thinks about
And
plots and all
he was
these things.
correct though, like, when
Yeah.
he was in search for the writer and he was like, "How would a person go about," like, that was a brilliant script. I thought the
Yes.
script, it leaves you guessing and wanting to figure out who is who in the story. The theme I think we wanna explore here is, I think this is initially what Not Shyamalan wanted to do. I mean, hope, healing, storytelling is the salvation in this film. That is the healing. The Nord comes through and makes sure that a story that's supposed to, change the
The
world.
Narf.
The Narf, my bad. The
Yeah.
Narf. I wrote down the actress's name, but I didn't write down the
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
mythical
Which
characters he
the
plays.
Narf is the main mythical creature in this movie, and she's a water nymph played by the great Bryce Dallas Howard, Ron Howard's daughter. And right before this, she had done The Village with M. Night Shyamalan. She's in The Village, and M. Night had written this script or was in the process of writing it and was like, "Hey, I've got another movie I want you to do." And she was on board right away. She was like, "I'll do it." So, that's
It's gotta
cool.
be fun working with M. Night Shyamalan, man. I mean, you're breaking down walls, like,
Yeah.
you're doing new things with directors like him. They're directors that are taking chances and putting out stuff
Yeah.
like this. That's gotta be fun, man. I
And,
mean,
I mean, you talked about M. Night Shyamalan and, like, the arc of his career. He starts off with Sixth Sense, huge,
huge
huge
film.
mega movie.
I don't
Unbreakable with, Bruce Willis again because he was in Sixth Sense. Unbreakable was awesome. Then he does Signs with Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. That does crazy at the box office.
and it
Then
was
he does
great.
The Village, and The Village does good at the box office, but reviews were mixed. I mean, I remember when I saw it, it got to the end of the movie, and there were people literally walking out when, like, the twist happens in the end, which is an interesting thing. Before this, M. Night Shyamalan was known as, like, that was sort of one of his hooks is like, "Well, there's gonna be a big twist at the end of the movie. What's the twist gonna be?" And this is his first movie where he doesn't have a twist. He doesn't I mean, there is a little bit of a twist as far as, like, we'll get into it later. Some of the characters aren't quite what they appear to be, but it's not really the twist of, like, his other movies where it's like he
That
flips the whole thing on your head,
The
you know?
Guardian was a big twist to me. That shit
Yeah.
blew my mind. I mean, with the link, our link, and how he described that character to Paul Giamatti's character at the doorway of his apartment, an hour and a half before the twist came to the audience, he gave you exactly who this person was when he gets to the apartment and we're meeting all the residents. Like, so I think I don't know. I gotta push back on that comment you just made a little bit because to me that was a huge twist. I was like, whoa, what the hell? He's the Guardian, like what? That's crazy. No,
Like,
I'm glad.
if this had been like one of the other Night Shyamalan twists, it's like the whole thing would have been a dream or something like
Right.
that, right? Like the apartment complex manager is dreaming. Like he wakes
Yeah.
up on the couch and the whole thing,
I will say it wasn't as big as, like, the other twists in the film, certainly, like, I see
No.
dead people or, you know.
We gotta say too, this is our first movie that we've done that has a somewhat mid IMDb rating. It's only got a 5.5. Like everything else we've done has been high sixes or low sevens or even an 8 with 12 Monkeys. So like it like
Well,
you
you like,
said, this is a
you either love
polarizing film. You either love it or hate it. I remember I've liked this film. My wife and I have always liked this film, but over
did y'all go and see
time
it in theaters when it came out?
we did. We did. I mean, after The Sixth Sense, I don't know if I saw Unbreakable in the theater, but basically almost everything after that, I went to the theater and saw. I saw The Village, I saw this,
I
you
saw
know,
Unbreakable
the
in
more
theaters with my dad as a child.
we saw Old in the theater, one of the more recent ones.
That one was crazy.
Yeah.
Old was crazy, man.
Yeah. He's got a
That was
very, very wild career. The so the main character in the story, aside from the girl whose name is Story, the water nymph we mentioned, is the great Paul Giamatti, right? And he plays the apartment manager. This whole story takes place inside an apartment building. Now, this movie had a estimated budget of $70 million, right? It only made 72 million at the box office.
so they
So
broke even.
for the studio, it was a flop because they probably spent more than 2 million in marketing, and marketing's not even included in the budgets. So they probably lost money making this movie and getting it out there. But like all that to say, this apartment complex they built for this movie. It's
Oh, I did not know that.
it's not a location that they went and found. They built a 5-story U-shaped apartment complex building with a pool. So most of the budget for this movie probably went into building this apartment complex as far
And the
as the single
CGI.
largest line item.
And the
Well,
CGI.
that was something you said that I was gonna comment on because when I was watching the special features, I was surprised how much of this movie is actually animatronics and puppets
Oh,
that they did,
really?
like, CG enhancements over top of for, like, the glowing eyes and, like, the we'll get
The
into more of
grass?
these creatures and stuff, the grass that sorta moves on their back. Like, they were real animatronic creatures in almost every shot, and then they went back and CGI'd little details over top of them.
I
Um, but
That's gotta still cost a bundle to
it's
render
still
all that.
I'm sure it wasn't cheap, and,
Paul Giamatti might have cost a little bit too at that
he
time. I
might
mean,
have, it's hard to say. I remember in learning a little bit about this movie, like, the producer, I think, approached M. Night with a poster for Sideways, which they had just recently seen, and
a
they both
phenomenal movie for our listeners. If you have not seen Sideways or
yeah,
Be in the Water, turn this
hilarious
watch it right
movie,
now.
and, they were
I'm
like,
not
"This is
taking
our
anything
guy."
more low, dude.
They were like, "This is our guy, Cleveland Heap." Cleveland Heap is the name of the character that plays the apartment manager who sort of is the main actor in this movie,
And let me
and
stop Jacob right there though. This
yeah,
performance that Paul gives in this film, he really went above and beyond, and you can tell with the stutter.
yes.
Paul is a phenomenal actor, and he gave a lot of effort in this role, and it shows on screen. And without Paul Giamatti, I don't think it would even be a cult classic, honestly. I mean, the way that it's
I
almost
don't
like
think
this film was
somebody could
written
have
around Paul Giamatti, right? I
I don't
mean,
think somebody could have pulled it off the way he did because he brings like this sort of like deep sense of sadness while at the same time there's a level especially in certain scenes of like goofiness and childlikeness that like is like perfect.
I felt like as an audience member, we're trying to find something wrong with this guy the entire time. Like the sexual tension between the narf and him when she shows up in the beginning. And I mean, you finding out what happened to him, the backstory of this character. And, then he's trying to search for all the right pieces to put this together and help. But phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal,
Yeah.
phenomenal. Paul fucking killed it. I mean,
Yeah.
without Paul, I don't think this movie does what it did. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. So I'll just really quick give a little bit more of like a deep dive really quickly into the plot, just so that all the little things we're going to talk about make a little bit of sense for the audience members who haven't seen it. Paul Giamatti runs this apartment complex. He finds a water nymph, the Narf, in the pool. And then he learns through another great character in the film that there's a bedtime story, like a Far East bedtime story that, these creatures. Well, the movie actually starts off with like some words telling the audience about this story of the blue world and these creatures called narfs that used to be in contact with ancient humans, but in time people moved away from the water and moved inland, and like, we lost our connection with these creatures that would teach us more about who we were as humans. And now they still come and they still show up and they're looking to connect with the right people. And so Paul Giamatti learns later in the story that once he discovers the Narf, he's supposed to like put together this group of people that's like a guild, a healer, an interpreter, like who's a
Writer, the
symbologist,
guardian.
a writer, like all these things. And this will help, the Narf reach her full potential and be rescued by this great eagle called the Great Eatlon and taken back to the blue world, where she'll rise to power and become the Madam Narf. And through her, humans will gain great knowledge. So that's like the real thrust of the story once we get into it, is him trying to figure out who in the apartment is who and how can they fulfill this prophecy, so to speak.
And like and how he introduced the bedtime story as the plot in the movie was brilliant too, with the two Asian actresses in the film. I wrote their names down. It's Cindy Chang and June Kyoto Liu. June Kyoto Liu played the mother and Cindy Chang played the daughter, and the daughter was this woman going to college, younger Asian female, wore loose clothing. She's in the culture of the '06 and '07, obviously. And her mother tells a bedtime story to her, and she ends up in passing conversation telling that to Paul Giamatti's character. And I've never seen these actresses before, but they did a really good job. And there was a lot of comedy with them letting the story loose and Paul Giamatti figuring out more to do. So just shout out to them.
Yeah. Just to mention some of the other actors in this that are great, you got a young Jeffrey Wright in this. A lot of people will know him recently from the movie American Fiction. He's freaking awesome. They have a group in the movie called The Smokers, and it's this apartment complex of guys that smoke. Jared Harris is in there. He's one of the great.
I was surprised to see he didn't even speak but like 3 times in this film.
No, yeah.
Jared
And
Harris, the one with the red hair, he
yes.
he had huge roles. I mean, I was surprised to even see him in this film, man. Like,
Yeah.
I
There's
mean, Mr.
another
T
guy,
was
I
a
think it
big
was,
one he was in.
Joseph D. Reitman, who's one of the smokers, the long-haired dude with the
Yeah.
curly long hair, and, like, a lot of these faces back then weren't as well known, but throughout the 20 years almost since this movie has come out, like, they've gone on to have pretty big careers, like, so those are just, a couple of the actors. There's lots of, Sari plays Night Shyamalan's sister in the movie. This is another thing you mentioned to me and just talking about it. M. Night Shyamalan plays a crucial role in this story. Now, in all of his
He
movies prior
does.
to this, he had popped up and had like a cameo, maybe had a line or something. But like in this one,
He
he's an
casted
actual actor who's in several scenes and has several lines. He's great.
he plays Vic Ryan, and that was a huge ego thing for critics, was like his vision and the ego behind casting himself as the person that the Narf even appears for, is this character. And a writer whose work will change the world, basically, is who this guy plays, and the character's name's Vic Ryan. Critics at the time said it was self-indulgent and asked if it was fair for him to even do that. I enjoyed it. I thought he did a good job, because he has a lot of scenes where he's sitting in the bathroom with the Narf, and it's very stoic. You could see him in deep thought, And I think he portrayed that character really well. I think he did that for his children for sure.
It's really cool because you find out, like, he's a humble writer who's been working on this project, and he sort of stopped working on it. It's called The Cookbook, but he gets, like, re-inspired as the Narf appears. And, like, when Paul Giamatti asks him what it's about, like you said, it's like a book on, social
His
aspects of the world, what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with our political leaders. And then the Narf tells him, like, one day a kid will grow up who reads this book and he will become a great orator. This book will change his
changed the
life.
world. Yeah.
And then this guy will change the world. And then, like you said, he's having this was some great acting by M. Night Shyamalan in that bathroom scene that you were talking about, because he realizes, like, the way she told him this future and what's going to happen, he's not likely to survive. Why would his work become famous? Because no one knows who he is. And he realizes, oh, it's because I'm going to die over this book. Like,
Right.
someone's going to kill me in the future. And, like, the way he doesn't tell his sister about it because he doesn't want it to affect her, and the way he plays that character is just, it's really awesome.
I mean, dude, and talk about a bold decision from a director at that time of his stature, because like we said, he had already came out with 3 major box office films, and I think his decision casting himself in this role, it certainly changed how critics reviewed him moving forward and saw him, and I think he hit it on the head. I don't know how I would have felt 16 years old going to see this film in the theaters at that time period. I probably would have walked in there just like a lot of people did, expecting something and not getting it and being frustrated with it. But I really enjoyed this film. I'm glad you picked it. It certainly is a love it, hate it or love it, story. I mean, and I think
One
that
of
he
the
did.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of the interesting things, you were talking about, like, healing, hope, the, like, sort of themes of the movie. Like, one theme you get throughout that sort of constantly builds is this theme of, like, how everyone's important, whether they found their place in life or what they think they wanna do with their life or not. Which is another interesting way that it sorta connects to some of the other movies we've done, like Suburbia. This idea that, you can struggle for a long time in your life trying to figure out what you wanna do, what it means to you, and a lot of people never do find that, because a lot of people, your career isn't necessarily who you are, it's not who you are as a person, it's just something you do, and this is, like, a very, like, thoughtful piece about finding out what's really important to you in life. And the Narf is really, that is the great knowledge that she's bringing to humanity, is this idea that, like, you are important. You can do something important. You can find something you love.
And I think he tested the line between myth and reality with this film as well. Like, just how close are we to something like this? It almost made it seem real in a way. And I mean, dude, the character introduction, how this man chose to give you the building blocks of this plot to keep the audience guessing up until the last fucking scene, really. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, you don't even know who the Guardian is until, and that's the whole time you're trying to figure out who the writer is in the beginning, but then you get more of the bedtime story, and now you realize the Guardian is like, all right, we need to find out who this motherfucker is, because these scrunts, I think scrunts are what they were
Scrunts,
called,
yeah.
are moving in, and
They're the sort of villain in this story. They're these, like, wolf-like creatures with grass on their back that, like, hide out, and their whole goal is to take out the Narf. They wanna kill the Narf. Giamatti is trying to protect her from the Scrunts the entire movie. He assumes that he's the Guardian, and like we said, the closest thing to a twist in this movie is that halfway through, they think they've got all the characters figured out as to who they are in this fantasy world, and then in the last third, you realize, like, no, they're not. Like, the people they thought were the guild aren't the guild, and he's not the guardian. He's actually the healer. And so it does sort of, the closest thing to a twist is definitely that whole aspect of figuring out who the real people are. And I guess this is a good time to go into, you mentioned the guardian and figuring out who he is. there's an actor, Freddie Rodriguez. I think most people would probably know him from like Grindhouse, Planet Terror. He plays the main role in that movie pretty much, or one of the main roles. And he is, well, one thing that M. Night said in working on this movie was he wanted to get a lot of people with theater experience, because people with theater experience know how to play humor and comedy without making it too over the top. And probably the most over the top, there's two scenes that are pretty over the top ridiculous. One is pretty early on where we meet this bodybuilder played by, his character's name is Reggie, played by Freddie Rodriguez. And he only works out one side of his body, right? As like some kind of physical experiment. And when you meet him, he's like lifting weights and he's like, yeah, this bicep is 4 inches bigger than the other side. And it just looks ridiculous. It's crazy. It's a weird thing to have in the story.
It really is, but at the end of the film, you find out how brilliant it is. And it's that one scene with Bob Balaban, our Link, and Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti is in desperate search of this guardian trying to help the Narf. And he goes to, and you know, Bob Balaban's character was introduced in the beginning of the film as the new tenant.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's there working on a story. So he's living at the apartment. Paul goes up to his house and he has a discussion with him. He's trying to figure out, he said, "You're a writer, aren't you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am a writer." He's like, "In a story, how would you find this person?" And Bob Balaban basically describes exactly who Freddie Rodriguez's character is in this story, in
Yes.
the explanation of that. And you don't realize that until the end. And that's M. Night Shyamalan's brilliance. And I think that's a big reason why you said Bob had to, when he read the script, he was one of those friends that they sent it all to, and he had to be in this film when he read it. And I think that was a major part in reading and thinking like, bro, that is genius. Like, you
Yeah.
know, it
And
really
this is a good
was.
time to talk about that character, because Bob Balaban plays a movie critic in the movie. And, you know, a lot of directors either, you know, just usually don't have a favorable opinion of movie critics and the way they go about reviewing movies, thinking about movies. And you really get a great dose of that with Balaban's character in this movie, because like even in describing when Cleveland goes to him to try to figure out who these people are, like you said, you see this arrogance of him of like,
Cynicism. He's like a
yes,
walking embodiment of cynicism. I
he's
mean,
cynical about movies, stories.
he's
But he says
dismissive,
a
he's
sad
quick to
truth I
analyze.
realized early on is there's no originality left in story making, which is funny because it's like there are like meta moments with his character where you're like, is he talking about this movie that we're in right now? Like, it's so funny. And then that sort of comes back later where he gets attacked by a scrunt later in the
And
movie and gives like this monologue about this is the point in the movie where this happens. And like, it's funny. It's like, it's almost
it's
like breaking the fourth wall where he's talking to the audience. Like it's sort of interesting.
what made it funny was when they had the skrunt kill him, it was after he was completely cynical at the pool party, like, you know, walking around. I think they wrote it how like he thought the party was for him or something. I
Yeah.
think that's like he actually thought that. And I wrote down that essentially, you know, he's punished for his overconfidence in predicting the story the whole time. Because the whole
Yes.
time the audience is like, who is this guy? Like
Yes.
he's guessing everything. And that's another really genius part of this script, man. I mean, it really is.
And he's wrong in that moment because he's like this is where I run away from the creature and like I barely escape through a door that just shuts
And
at the last moment, but
he
it
died.
doesn't happen. The thing just clamps down on his ass and
Yeah,
gets
dude.
him, you know. So
Yeah,
it's
man.
hilarious. It's cool. Like it's like
I
nope,
mean,
wrong again, buddy.
he leans into satire with like
Yeah.
you know, dry
There's
wit.
another great humorous scene where the Asian women you were talking about earlier, the daughter is like, "Look, you know, my mom, I can't remember if it's her mom or her grandmother, but she's like, she really doesn't like know who you are," talking about Paul Giamatti's character. And she responds a lot better to people if she thinks they're innocent and childlike. And if
Yeah.
you can convince her that's who you are, she'll she'll just tell you the whole
Dude,
story, right? So he goes in and he has like milk and cookies and he has a huge milk mustache and he like lays down on their couch like all like a kid. It's
and
hilarious.
he did it really good. I mean, the way he was like, because that's good acting. You have to be able to act it if you're gonna play that scene where it's like, all right, because he's asking about the story, but he's not portraying as a kid in some of the areas, and so he starts to like lay down, like you said, like that's brilliant acting. I mean, Paul Giamatti killed it, and so did Bob Balaban. And honestly, Bob Balaban is a very important character in this film. I mean, he
Yeah.
really is. I think it was a solid link, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it's a super important, you know, I mean, this was an incredible movie. I mean, it's something totally different, I think, for our audience. If anybody's, we should have said in the beginning, look, if you haven't seen this movie, turn us off, go watch this film, and then come back and watch. Because, unless you have seen it, we're really not going to be making a ton of fucking sense, I don't think. I mean, just how, like, I mean, this was a bold move by M. Night Shyamalan, especially considering the time period of his career and where he chose to introduce this kind of story,
Yeah. It's
for
important
sure.
for this kind of movie too that like the characters that are in it take it real. And they do. It's like as soon as the different people in the apartment building find out about this,
They latch on to it as
you
hope.
don't get people going like this is bullshit. Like they sort of all fall in line with the idea that oh, this is real. Like this is a water nymph. Like we got to help her,
And
find her way back home.
that was the beautiful part of this movie for me, was like no one, because deep down I think we all have a belief of something that we cannot see, whether that be faith, whether that be the universe, however you choose to look at it. I'm not going to get into religion on this podcast, that's not why we're here. But the belief and hope was the underlying theme of, and the salvation from the story, to bring people peace and an understanding of, you don't have to have everything figured out, and you will get help along the way if you're doing something that's meant to be done.
Yeah.
And M. Night killed it, man. I mean, we got to talk about M. Night for this episode. If you don't know who we're talking about, go check out his filmography. The man is brilliant. He really is the bold risk taker in me and Jacob's, millennial generation. Like, this guy came through, hit the scene with a fucking iron like anvil, and just flipped Hollywood upside down with the twists and the plots that he's filmed, and the brilliant acting he's like just filmed on screen and put together. I think he's brilliant at casting. I think he's brilliant at telling stories. And we were talking about Split the other day, and
Yeah.
just like how of a like, you don't even know it's a sequel until the last 3 fucking seconds.
It was
And
literally, I won't say the best, but it was probably top 5 experiences I had in the theater where when that moment happens, Unbreakable at that time was my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie. And when it got to the end and you realize that it's like this sequel to Unbreakable, I mean, talk about mind blown. I was just like, what the fuck? How cool that he kept this a secret, doesn't tell anybody, and then 15, 20 years later releases this movie that's a sequel. It was awesome. It was so much fun, so cool. I mean,
that's a
for
risk.
kids growing up now or younger people, even people who are like 20 years old, you can't imagine how big The Sixth Sense was when it came out. I mean, it was massive because,
And this was when VHSs were still being bought, people. I
yeah,
mean,
I
this
mean,
was an incredible film.
people
I
were
mean,
just like, "You've gotta see this movie," and people didn't want to, like, tell people, like, what was gonna happen. It was, like, where the audience was in on it, like, "We gotta keep this secret because if you haven't seen it, when you see it and you find out the twist, it's gonna blow your mind."
and I don't know if people, let's go back to that time period. This is when people were still going to Hollywood Video and Blockbuster and renting movies, and I wish they had stats on what was like the most rented movie during time periods, because I
Yeah.
truly believe that A Sixth Sense, because this was a groundbreaking film. That film came out, nobody had done anything like that up until this point, and I think it's safe to say that's probably one of the most rented movies of all time. It's certainly a huge box office success. So and we just talked about 12 Monkeys. Bruce Willis, phenomenal,
Yeah.
phenomenal portrayal. Night Shyamalan casted a child actor in this film too who killed it,
Haley Joel Osment.
Haley
Yeah.
Joel Osment, and he's still, he's shifted to more comedy
Yeah.
and playing like smug, arrogant assholes
Yeah.
for his casting. But yeah, no, it's incredible film. If you haven't seen The Sixth Sense, I mean, you don't really get to the movies a whole lot, I don't think,
Yeah.
I mean, how could you miss this film? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, M. Night's done a lot of things. I think it was very interesting, after this movie, he had The Village, he had this. Right after this, he did The Happening. That was another one that fell flat with audiences. I like The Happening. I'm an
I
M.
mean,
Night Shyamalan apologist, so I like almost everything he's done. And then basically, he sort of gave up on his career. He did I don't know if he gave up or the studios gave up on him. It might have been the studios gave up on him, but they gave him some mainstream films. They gave him After Earth with Will and Jaden Smith, and they gave him The Last Airbender, and neither of those movies did good either. And then he
it
decided,
wasn't his
screw it,
story, I
he's
don't
going to
think.
go back to his roots and start to make the movies he wanted to make again. And he started to really take off again. I mean, he did The Visit, then he did Split, then he
Oh,
did
The Visit.
Glass, he did
The
Old. He
Visit
recently did the Trap with,
The
I'm
Visit
forgetting
is
his
my
name, but it's
favorite M.
great.
Night Shyamalan film. We had a discussion, me and Jacob will call each other throughout the week and talk about this, and we were talking about M. Night Shyamalan and, like, what it's got. I mean, guys, go look it up, man. I mean, his filmography is ridiculous. There's not too many directors that get an opportunity to make film the way that this man has made film, like the Richard Linkletters, the M. Night Shyamalans, the Coen brothers. Like, these guys were in a time period where you could I get a movie made more easily than I think you can now. I mean, we're only looking at like a handful of directors in 2025 that pretty much have free reign. The Christopher Nolans, the Villeneuve, or however you say his name. I mean, but yeah, M. Night Shyamalan definitely is one of those guys I think Hollywood needed, and I think they still need. I mean, this guy bends the foundation of Hollywood and major box office films being released, and he got back to his roots recently. That we just talked about that movie Old. If you haven't seen Old, you got to go see Old. It's a mind-bending film, and
Yeah.
I think been his goal with a lot of his work, most of his work. He truly wants to bend your mind, and I'm not talking about the Airbender. I'm talking about he
Yeah.
wants to. Nobody was getting their minds bent with the Airbender, all right? But,
Yeah.
you
Well, and
know
aside from Last Airbender and After Earth, I think one thing I appreciate directors that write their own scripts, and that's what
I d
M. Night
I think we
Shyamalan
all do.
does. He
Yeah.
writes he writes most of his own scripts, and that makes a big difference because then you're invested in it on a different level. When you were writing it, you had a vision in your head, so now you're trying to make that vision come to life, and that just makes for a better movie, in my opinion,
Yeah,
for
I
the
mean,
most part.
a good comparison, M. Night Shyamalan is in film is like the J. Cole or the Russ of film. Russ is a rapper who writes, produces, mixes, all his music is done by one person, and that is Russ. Night Shyamalan, same way. I think he's one of those rare directors that has full control. I mean, and I even wrote that down here. I wrote, it's the risk of unfiltered artistic control is what I wrote down, because you don't get too many movies that have that. Like Christopher
Yeah.
Nolan, when he took over the Dark Knight series, it was his image on the Dark Knight. It wasn't a researched, revisited, remake. It was his vision for this character, and it went on to be some of the greatest films I've ever seen. So that in Hollywood, I think that's a great point to bring up on the show. Like, these guys that get full artistic control from the studios have an opportunity to do something with film that not too many directors get a chance to do. And
Yeah.
he's hit it out of the park more than he hasn't. And
Yes.
we got to give our flowers to M. Night Shyamalan. We certainly, if I ever get to see this man or meet him, I'm going to shake his hand, give him a hug, and tell him thank you, because I mean, I know he's done a lot for you. He's done a lot for me as an audience member. This guy really makes you look at film a certain way. And I just rewatched The Happening because in our conversation, we were just ragging on it, and I was ragging on it certainly, and how Mark Wahlberg was just steaming hot at the time this movie came out, and he was really the only known actor in it. And it almost felt like he was carrying this film. And, killing children on film is a bold decision, making yourself the number one character, the main guy that the whole bedtime story is built around and why it even appeared for your character, bold. I mean, to have your main protagonist dead the entire film and the audience don't realize it until an hour in, bold. And he doesn't miss. I think he
Yeah.
might have missed with this one, but it's got such a cult following, and here we are doing a podcast episode on it. I know
I
we're not
think
huge, but I
I
mean,
think this is one of those movies that time is gonna do a huge favor to,
and it
because
has
he
already.
had like you said, there was an audience expectation. Now people going back and rewatching it, they don't have that same expectation. They're just watching it as a singular movie. And
And I
so
was one
now
of
if
those
they go
people.
back and watch it, they can really just appreciate it for what it is, and I think it works. I think, we mentioned the apartment complex being built, the creatures. There was also like an underwater layer underneath the pool that Paul Giamatti swims down into that looked really cool. And like you find that the Narf has collected like different little treasures that have been left around the pool. So there's lots of little,
It's
for
one of
such
the
a
look
small
that
movie that takes place in one setting, this apartment complex, it also feels big and it feels good. The cinematographer, I think his name's Christopher Doyle. He did like a great job with like filming it, making it look really beautiful.
dude, that underwater scene you're talking about, man. I mean, that was the most striking visual moment of the film for me. When he dives into that pool and he's pushing on that rock and he sees all those stuff that, the Narf was stealing. I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed that part of the movie. That
Yeah.
really like, sucked me into it when he did that. And I was like, oh wow, they're really going with this thing. Like,
Yeah.
he's not gonna wake up anytime soon. Like, this shit's crazy, man.
I think one last thing, just so we don't miss it, that I wanted to mention, because we talked a lot about Bob Balaban, and I should have thrown this in then, is like there's a scene where Balaban is talking to Paul Giamatti's character, and somehow rain comes up in cinema. He's talking about this movie he just saw, and Paul Giamatti is like, "Did you like it?" And the guy's like, "No," and he's going off on all the things in this romantic comedy that were wrong to him. And he was like, "And why do characters always talk in the rain? That makes no sense. People don't stand around talking in the rain." And like Paul Giamatti goes, "Could the rain be like a metaphor for purification and like, a rebirth of the characters?" And he's like, "No, it is not." Like Balaban is insistent, like that's not it. And at the end of this movie, it's raining when the great eat line comes to pick up the Narf, and Paul Giamatti is talking to the Narf, and it's raining, and it's so beautiful because you realize again how meta this movie is, like referring to itself, like because it is a scene of a metaphor of purification, like exactly what he mentioned before. And I just thought that was so cool the way the movie keeps referencing itself a little bit.
And let's talk about the stutter. We got to
Yeah.
talk about the stutter. That's a huge part. The main character played by Paul Giamatti is the apartment attendant and or like the maintenance man, and he has this like horrible stutter to where it's almost like somebody choking him almost. He did it so brilliantly in that scene where he heals and he finds out he's the healer and he like just bleeds on her, all the pain that he's kept inside from losing his family to a murderer. I guess that was Night Shyamalan's way of showing like healing doesn't erase the pain, but it allows Cleveland to finally speak his truth.
Yeah.
And he spoke his truth and he heals, brings the Narf back. And
And he heals himself.
right,
Like he's trying to heal himself too.
right. That was a huge part for me, man. I mean, I was really blown away watching this film. I didn't know what to expect. As I heard M. Night Shyamalan, just like you said, when you were talking about back in the day, if we had went and saw this movie, but now it's 2025. What time has done for this film, I think is so much more than what M. Night Shyamalan did for this film, because now we as audience members are watching it in a different light. And when I watched it, I certainly wouldn't have watched it in 2006 the way I watched it last week.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant, man. It really is. If you think about it, it's It's a healing story. The audience is supposed to leave with that hope. They're supposed to leave with, everything's going to work out at the end. And there are people that come into your life that you need to get you through it. So I think what M. Night had to do was ensure that this wasn't going to stick to any one particular religion for someone. And I think that was a part of why he casted 2 Korean women to give him the story, to like spur up the audience's mind on, all right, so what are they trying to mimic? Like, are they mimicking the Bible? Or no, they're mimicking a fake story that people lean onto for hope. And I think that falls under every category of religion. I think it falls under every category of any spiritual feelings, healing. This was a deeper movie than I thought it was going to be, for sure. I was really shocked to see that it had a 5.5 on
Yeah.
IMDb. And I'm glad that it does, though, because like you said, we've been doing 6s and 7s this whole time.
I
Or
think
7s and
another
8s, really, but
I think another moment that, to go back to the beginning of the film, after we get this sort of word crawl of the story of the NARF and stuff, the movie opens up on Paul Giamatti under someone's sink in the apartment building trying to kill a rat. And we don't know what he's doing because we can't see the rat. We just see him and all these people behind him scared, And I thought it really sets up the tone of the movie perfectly because you're confused. You don't know what's going on. You're a little bit like, should I be scared right now? What's going on? But then as you realize it's a rat and he's killing a rat, it becomes humorous. So it's like, it's perfectly set the tone of like, should I be scared? Should I be laughing? Like, what is going on here right away at the beginning of the film? I thought that was really cool too.
and that's why I was shocked that it got this rating, because like there's so many parts even in the beginning, like you said, like that are just tiny little scenes that do so much for
Yeah,
the flow of the story. And you could tell, like, even the band that he chose at the end in the party, I think that band's name was Silvertide, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
Uh,
that's right. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of theirs, but I looked them up. They're a pretty big band. And he got a real band, because I thought when you watch the movie, I was like, wow, that song is actually pretty damn good. I wonder if he really sung it. I did my research. It is a real band that he booked just to film that one part. And it was the way that when they do finally start playing the music, I'm not going to get into why there was a band and all this shit, but I mean, it's too much. Go watch the film, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, stuff like that, what Jacob was saying, the introduction scene, him under the sink, the bathroom scenes, the healing scene, the scene where Bob Balaban basically, like, he's shitting on critics in that scene. Like,
Yeah.
he's taking punches at the industry while making these bold risks in the industry. And he kind of made me feel like he's Mike Tyson, man. Like, he just doesn't give a fuck, dude. And like, I mean, and I love it and I appreciate him for who he is and how he chooses to tell these stories, man. There's not, like I said, full reign and artistic control backed by a studio is not a common thing anymore. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just not the common theme. It's not how films are getting made these days. There's not too many Christopher Guests, Night Shyamalans in this world. And we gotta give our flowers to these people. And I think that's why Jacob chose this film. I mean, it's a phenomenal film, and also like the skewed reviews, and there really is no in between. Nobody gave this movie a 5 and said what they liked and didn't like. They all gave this movie a 2 or a 3 or a 7 or a 10.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, time matters for this film, certainly. I mean, great film, guys. I mean, you got to go see this film.
I think that's a good place to, wrap it up, man. I like
Yeah.
the M. Night, you know, like you said, great director. Go back, revisit his catalog, guys, and definitely don't skip this one.
And M. Night Shyamalan, if you for some reason ever see this episode, man, we would love to hear from you. Reach out,
We'll have you on as a guest, brother. I mean,
bro.
come on.
Or you can stay at my house. You can sleep in my bed. I'll get it nice for you.
One little thing I do want to throw in about M. Night, he doesn't forget his roots either. A
He
lot of his
doesn't.
movies take place in Philadelphia, where he grew up. This
This film
movie
took
is supposed to
place
take
in
place in
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
I think they filmed it in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and so I think they did on the outskirts. That was Sixth Sense, Unbreakable. A lot of his movies took place in
Yo, man,
Philadelphia.
and shout out to this man again for being a great father. When you told me that story about him telling this bedtime story to his children, and his children got older and wanted him to make that movie, and I think without his children, this movie doesn't get made. I don't think he would have took the chance. I think
Yeah.
he took this bold step because the love he had for his children. Man, great episode, great movie, guys. Go see that film, Lady in the Water, because right now, we got a fucking train to catch, and it's called the motherfucking hype train.
Hype
The
train.
fucking hype train. Choo choo, motherfuckers. Jacob, you want to start? You want me to go?
I can start it off this time. Let's see. All right. I'm going to go with a little theme here. Last week I did a documentary called Chain Reactions. I'm going with another documentary. This is in post production right now, but they actually dropped a trailer, even though it's not completely done. And it's called The Importance of Being Earnest, which is the title of another famous film. But the earnest is spelled a little bit different because they're talking about Ernest P. Worrell, Mr. Jim Varney of the famed, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on his films right now, but
Who?
people
Say
know
his name again.
Jim Varney is the actor's name who played
Mm.
Ernest. Ernest Goes to Camp, Ernest Goes to Jail,
Oh, yeah. Dude,
the
those are some of
famous
the worst
children's.
movies I've ever seen in my life.
Well, that's because we got a 10-year age difference, brother.
Ernest Goes to Jail was horrendous.
I love Ernest Goes to Jail.
You did?
I will defend Ernest Goes to Jail every day of the week. Right? Now, he did a bunch of movies after Ernest Goes to Jail that were legitimately bad. Like, he did Ernest Goes to Africa.
Oh,
He
Ernest
did
Goes to Africa was
Yeah, it's
so
not it didn't
bad.
it really does do not watch that one, guys.
Yo, guys, go watch that one. Like, if you want to laugh and turn as red as my dude, I
But
don't
for
know how they
anybody
finished.
who grew up with Ernest, this is a documentary about Jim Varney, right? And for people who don't know, he was a North Carolina-based actor, right? Who in North Carolina
Shout out Danny McBride.
started doing TV commercials. So think about like the shitty commercials you see on TV for your local plumber or your local car place. That's how this guy got his start. He was doing funny ads for local businesses and it became nationally famous. Like people wanted this guy Ernest in their commercials in the 80s. And then the guy who directed all these commercials was a friend of his, John Cherry. And John Cherry and him started writing scripts and making children's movies. The most famous one was his first one, Ernest Goes to Camp. And this movie was a huge success, especially with kids. I love these movies.
Let
Ernest
me
Saves Christmas, another
let me
great
ask you
film.
something, because like you're blowing my mind with the love of Ernest right now. When I was growing up, my mom used to shove these videos in my face, like forced me to watch this stuff. And
Yeah.
I want to ask, like, did Melanie have any? Was she putting this stuff in front of you? I mean, was
No, I think what it was is I loved these movies, and my dad used to like sometimes imitate Ernest. Ernest had this phrase, you know what I mean, Vern? And like he had all these like catchphrases and stuff, and my dad would, because part of Ernest's thing that would happen, like, and a lot of his commercials and stuff he did prior to the movies is he's like a handyman. He's like a fix-it guy, but shit's always going wrong. He's falling off ladders. Windowsills are like falling on his hands and like hitting his hands. Like they're goofy slapstick stuff made for kids. And I loved it. And so if I had to guess, it's probably my dad's love of these movies that transferred onto your mom. And so she was
well,
like,
yeah, that makes sense
I
because
gotta show him these movies.
that makes sense because, man, my mom really loves your brother, or my mom really loved her brother. And like she would just, I mean, every time we'd go, she'd always take me to the video update store. We'd get like 3 movies. That way I could just stay in my room watching these movies, or she'd take me to work with her. I remember always renting the Spice Girls because I was like this horny little kid trying to, just watch all these fine ass women on film. But Yeah, no, she used to always, like, force me. She's like, "Well, get Ernest too, because Ernest's a great movie, you haven't seen it yet." And I'd be like, "Mom, I don't wanna watch this.
Yeah.
I don't even know who this is."
This
Like,
is corny, yeah,
this shit is trash. Like, I'm a little kid saying this, like, but like you
yeah,
said, this is a time period thing, I think, like,
yeah,
he had the notoriety from those commercials, and then when Ernest Goes to Camp came out, huge
yeah.
success, but then they started getting a little crazy with it, and, you know,
And you've
Ernest
mentioned
went to
on
Africa,
past
and we never
podcasts,
seen him. I don't think he
we
came back from Africa.
we have family in North Carolina. Both your mom and my dad lived in North Carolina at different
Huge
parts of their
roots in North
life. I
Carolina.
did too. So I think the fact that this guy was from North Carolina, making commercials and filming most of his movies in North Carolina
And a
probably made a
small
huge.
part of North Carolina too. I mean,
Exactly, yeah.
North North Carolina is a perplexing place for those who have never been or seen what it is. I mean, we're not talking about Charlotte, okay?
Yeah,
We're talking about the entire state of North Carolina and
yeah,
what it brings to the table, and it's a very, different place, very
yeah.
rural. A lot of people might not know that, and when I say rural, I mean, there's, like, people making their own laws in some counties, man. It's a wild place, but, a lot of great people have came out of North Carolina, though, and Danny McBride's one of them. If
Okay.
you don't know who Danny McBride is, he started his film career at a community college in I think it was I don't know the exact name, but I think it might have been Charlotte, but he's from one of the residing counties around there, and, he met I forget his name, like, I'm putting
Will
myself on the spot
Ferrell,
right now.
was it? Or
No, it wasn't Will
no?
Ferrell. Danny McBride met somebody that they produced movies together, but, I was actually watching an interview of his, and, he filmed his very first film. It was the Taekwondo teacher movie. I don't know what it's called, but Fist, I think is what it's called, and him and this guy they met at that
Way of
community
the
college.
Fist, I think.
Way of the
Yeah,
Fist, I think, yeah.
yeah,
They
yeah.
filmed that on their own dime, like, they spent, like, $70,000 on that, they filmed it, and that's how they bursted into the scene, but they filmed it in North Carolina, so shout out to North Carolina for,
Yeah.
the
So,
greatness.
importance of being earnest, the trailer's on YouTube. We're gonna have a link in the description as always, guys. So if you're an Ernest fan, or even if you're not and you're just like, "What the hell are these guys talking about?" Go watch a trailer for this. Go watch a trailer for Ernest Goes to Camp. You'll know what the heck we're talking about.
For
Choo
sure, for
choo.
sure. Choo
To your
choo,
hype
motherfuckers.
onto your hype train pick, brother. What do you
Alright, man,
got?
let me get into it, so when I was growing up, uh there was no streaming. We didn't have Netflix, and if I think we did have Netflix at the time, but it was a DVD service. So like you would subscribe and pick stuff on the internet and they'd mail the DVDs to you. I think that at this time when this movie first came out, I was around the age of 10, and I remember my mom had a pay-per-view box, because to watch these movies, you would have to pay, like, 20, $30, and you'd get the movie sent to your TV. But if you got a box, it would rip these pay-per-view channels and you could watch them for free all day long. And my mom had one, and Scary Movie was one of the movies that had hit the scene and took everyone by surprise, I think. If you haven't seen Scary Movie, it's a great, I don't know what they call it.
Spoof. They
It's a
call them
spoof.
spoof. Yeah.
So, it's a spoof on scary movies, and they just make fun of it. The
The
great Anna
first one was,
Harris.
like, going for, like, Scream,
Yeah,
and, like, when Scream was big, it
they
was
made fun of Scream, they made fun of, What I Did Last Summer, all those, like, teen
slasher
scary.
movies, teen
Yeah,
slasher film.
and they
And then
made fun.
throughout the years, they did, like, the supernatural movies, and
Right.
they might even in that first one, I think there's a little spoof on The Sixth Sense.
There
The I
is,
See
yeah.
Dead People. Yeah,
There
yeah.
is, there is. They just, and it was brilliant for its time, and I think as a kid, when I first saw it, I saw a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to see at that age, so it, like, opened up my eyes to, like, a lot of things, in a good way, in a bad way, certainly, but bold, very bold. I think the Wayans brothers were in it, Anna Faris was in it.
She's one of my favorites. She's
She's
hilarious as
I
hell.
love her sitcom Mom.
Okay.
I thought that was a great sitcom she was in. Same writers from Two and a Half Men did her show Mom. Forget who was the other person that played her mom, but no, my hype train is Scary Movie 6, guys. That's right. They've made 5. These films, people love them. I mean, because all the scary movies keep coming out, so they just keep getting more stuff to poke fun at.
Yeah.
And this new Scary Movie 6 is scheduled to hit theaters June 12th, 2026. The film was officially
Nice.
announced April 2024, and it's being fully financed by Miramax, who, if you don't know, Miramax, they make a lot of good stuff, and I think they were the original ones that backed Scary Movie in the beginning. So the cast is still Anna Faris. She is coming
Nice.
back for this one. Regina Hall, they're going to return as the fan favorites. The Wayne brothers are certainly going to be up there again. Look, they wrote a lot of Scary Movie 2, and Scary Movie 2 was better than 1 for me. And I don't say that a lot about sequels, but man, the hand scene and the guy in the wheelchair, I fucking love those scenes. I thought that was some of the funniest shit I've ever seen until this day. Michael Tids is going to be the director. He's filmed things like Haunted House. Additional producers was the Rick Alvarez, Jonathan Gickman, Alexandra Lowy. They did all the originals too. And I think they're just going to recapture the same crazy rated R spoof movie that they've been doing the last 5 times.
Let's take a stab at guessing some of the modern films.
I already wrote those down. Yeah. So
let me guess one, because I know you're going to say it, and you got a whole list. They're going to throw Terrifier in there somewhere.
No, I didn't see that one, but that is a good one. They might.
I think they'll throw those in there somewhere.
They're definitely going to make fun of Get Out. That's the big one that I read in a lot of the reviews. Yeah. And
when did 5 come out? I don't remember, but it's been a long time.
Oh man, that was a while ago. Scary Movie 5. Let me look that up. I want to say 2008.
Wow. So yeah, it's been quite a break. So they've got
2013. I was 5 years off. So
still, they've got 12 years of movies to poke
they're gonna make fun. They're gonna possibly make fun of The Heretic, I think. Nope. They're gonna make fun of that one too. Nope was a good one. Long Legs and Sinners. Sinners was another one I think they're gonna make. Dude, I mean, like you said, 2013 is 2025. That's fucking 12 years from now. So
yeah.
The release date again, guys, June 12th, 2026. Scary Movie 6. This coming next summer. So really excited for that. Just, as a kid, I think seeing Scary Movie as a kid really embedded the fan inside of me, as opposed to if I would have seen it as an adult, I probably would have been like, this shit's fucking crazy. Like when Anna Faris, the sex scene where she hits the ceiling and she's stuck on the ceiling because of the cum. Like as a kid, when I saw that, I remember going what the fuck is this? What happened? Fucking 10 years old. I'm like, what is this shit? I have no idea what's going on. But one of my favorite parts of that movie was in the beginning. They make fun of the original Scream and her running away from the slasher in the beginning of the film. They started their movie with that scene, the beginning of Scream. And there's this part where she's running away and there's a machine gun, a knife, and a banana on the table. And it's what do you choose as a weapon? And she takes the banana and runs off. And it's just fucking seriously stupid. And I think that's why it does so well. But the fact that all the cast is going to be original, and I don't know if the director directed, I don't think he has. Yeah, he hasn't. But actually, let me make sure that the original isn't Michael Tids. Scary Movie 2. Yeah, the original director was Keenan Ivory Wayans. So one of the Wayans brothers did it, but love these films. And I'm really excited. I kind of jumped out of my couch a little bit when I saw Scary Movie 6 was even being made. I thought we had stopped with this, I thought this. And this just goes back to what we always say on this podcast and why we picked this movie and what we were talking about with character
original scripts
scripts and previous success is being remade. They're not taking chances on new stuff. The studios keep redoing classics, redoing books. It's like what Disney is doing. Disney is literally filming old cartoon classics with real actors. Like they just did Lilo and Stitch, killed the box office. They missed with Snow White. I hope we get to do that one day. We got to do an episode on Snow White one day. That was a massive fail. I think it was the biggest fail in all of film, but
maybe we'll do it as a filler episode one day.
Hey, maybe we should, man. But yeah, guys, Flickin Off episode 6.
In the bag.
In the bag, baby. We're going to keep coming to you every single week. We're going to link this film somehow, guys. I just want to shout out to everybody that's been following. We are going to link this film somehow, some way, and we challenge you to guess. That's right. If you can guess our next film and comment in this video right here, your guess for the next one that we do, and it's correct, put your Cash App name, your Venmo, however you want to get paid, and we will honor it if you get it correct. I don't think you're going to get it correct. Actually, kind of know you're not going to get it correct. You're not that smart. So
100 bones,
100 bones, guys, and it's going to be straight to you. We'll shout you out on the show, and we appreciate y'all listening, man. Jacob, you got anything else you want to say before we hop off this motherfucker?
Just, to reiterate what you were saying, man, hit us up, subscribe, tell your friends, like, comment, all that dumb stuff. And yeah, go to Apple, write a review on the podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify as well.
Reviews.
So throw them up there.
Reviews. Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Yeah, we're done flicking off for now, but we'll be here next week, like I said, flicking off. Once again, we're out, guys. Peace.
Peace.